Good evening and welcome to a regular meeting of the Lakeview Town Board. It is July 8th, 2025, and I will call this meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. Quickly, for those online, can you hear us okay? Great, awesome, thank you. May we please have a roll call?
Yeah. Mr. Goldman.
Present.
Ms. Olson.
Present.
Ms. Bouchard.
Present.
Mr. Bobs.
Present.
Ms. Weatherby, who is joining remotely due to extenuating circumstances.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We have an agenda that was posted. I would request that an item of new business letter B, language line phone interpreting contract. It was posted on the town's website yesterday. Does anybody else have any other changes needed to the agenda? Okay, motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you. A second. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that brings us to privilege of the floor. Any member of the public is welcome to up to 3 minutes. Let me grab my to address the. I'll have a second privilege of the floor at the end of the meeting if anybody has additional comments. Please go ahead.
Dolores Tigarita on 35 Bradley Street. I was basically meeting at the fire hall about Barton Scouts camp. And it was very informative. And I was glad that that happened. And yeah, and I really commend the town and the other entities to forming the LLC to bring this forward, and I can't wait.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for attending. We appreciate it. Is there anybody online who which just a second, I go back and forth. I'm sorry, I should have said that. I go back and forth in person online. Is there anybody online who wishes to address the town board? Okay. Is there anybody in person who wishes to? Please go ahead.
Hi, Eric Mobley, 8514 Falls Road. Just bring the board's attention about potential construction happening at the Grassroots Campground. This afternoon, there was an excavator and backhoe digging out. I saw no call before you dig signs or flags, and it looks like a telephone or light pole's being put in right now. And I'm just concerned as a neighbor across the street. I heard nothing about this. And last year they had temporary lights and those shined into my house. My house faces the road that way, which I didn't say anything because they were temporary. I knew they were just for the festival, but they literally just put a pole in the ground. So I'm just concerned about that with lights coming in my property, and I wasn't sure if the town board even knew it was happening.
Well, thank you for bringing that to our attention. I can't speak to that specifically, but I can certainly talk to our code officer tomorrow morning. If you make sure you leave me your email address, we can follow up with you and find out what's going on.
Thank you.
Absolutely appreciate it. Is there anybody online who wishes to address it? The town board. Okay, is there anybody else in person who wishes to address the town board? Okay, well then let's keep moving along. The first item is an update from Deb Ostick, who's the director of the Trumansburg Community Nursery School.
Yeah, I'll stand up so you can see everybody. Hi, thanks for having me. In case anybody doesn't know, we finally got into our new building in January, and finally just like about 3 weeks ago finished all of our licensing stuff. So we are very excited, up and running, ready to welcome any little kids that anybody has. We have space for 48 kids altogether. If we were maxed out, 12 toddlers, 36 preschoolers. So thanks to the town board for support for the community grants that you guys give. We use all the money we get from the town for scholarship. Last year we gave $10,000 in scholarships to our families. That's 11, went to 11 different families, different amounts depending on some part year, some for the whole year. And we work really hard to make sure anybody can afford to come. We don't turn anybody away. They pay, if they have to, they pay what they can. And I would be happy to answer the questions if there's burning information anybody would like.
So I was just gonna clarify, the town didn't give $10,000. That's the town, the town percentage would be probably less than, less than
Your- the
20%.
community grants, whatever.
The community grant was less, a little bit less than 2,000, if I recall correctly, somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah, 1750 maybe,
Yes,
somewhere
no,
in that range.
10,000 was our whole scholarship fund, yes. Oh, we would be happy to. do
Tell you what.
10,000.
I know, I can tell Rich was like, we gave $10,000.
No, our total scholarship that we, out of our budget, we fundraise other money and, yeah, yes. But feel free to put it up to 10,000, that would be great.
Well, our community funding materials are being distributed this week to organizations, and so there may be other organizations that come through, but I wanted to offer it, organization is offered the opportunity. And some come and are able to in the time window we have in the fall, but TCNS was available now, so any questions for Deb?
We're in camp right now, so. It's our first all day kids this month, so. Yeah,
What ages are the toddlers?
18 months to 3 years old for that classroom, and then 2 preschool classrooms, 3 to 5. Yeah, and eventually I'll be probably talking to the school, is anybody that's online listening, about being able to take some of their pre-K after school kids, which are basically the same age as our kids, because I know that's hard. Hard for them sometimes to find after school care when they're just starting school. Yeah.
And am I correct that that TCNS is only the third licensed daycare facility, like fully licensed daycare facility in the town? I can think of 2 others at Racker and Smart Start
And Namaste
and Namaste. Yeah. So
Yeah.
4,
of centers, yeah.
yeah. There's a significant childcare shortage in our community. So,
Yeah, especially for the littler ones.
great. Any other questions for Deb?
I'm sorry if I missed it, but what's your enrollment? What's your numbers right now looking like?
Well, right now we just have summer camp going on. So right now we have 10 kids in summer camp, and we're enrolling for the fall, which, it's hard, I mean, it's changing every day. But, there'll be probably at least for September to start, we'll have, and actually they come all over the place, like not all the same day, so. I'm gonna say we have like 35 families enrolled right now for the fall. And when I say 48 spots, it's probably gonna end up being like 60 to 70 families. Because some of them come 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, so it's really actually a pretty big group of community people. That get
Yeah, no,
served.
it sounds like a
Yeah, and we like to actually, that's one of the things that's very important to us, is to offer different schedule options for parents, just some flexibility, whether they want a half a day or a full day, 2, 3, 5 days. Some people have family in the area that help them with childcare, so they don't, in the afternoons and stuff.
Have you seen an uptick in scholarship needs?
Yes, I'm gonna say an uptick in needs and a downtick in income for the people that are looking for assistance. Yes, lower incomes, you know, overall, I'd say, the people that are asking for money for assistance, yeah. But now also being licensed, now we can accept childcare subsidy from New York State, so that's another thing that will help some of that.
Excellent. Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming out tonight. We appreciate it. Quick and easy.
I know, anytime, anybody email me if you have any questions, or come and see us, come and visit our new building, I'm happy to show everybody around.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Deb.
Thanks.
I have a question. There's going to be a little thing on August 2nd.
August 2nd, yeah.
Will the daycare or will the nursery school be open?
Yes, I emailed Nancy, we're gonna be there, I'm probably gonna be there with all of the other people. And then have the building open, after that, just because I can't be 2 places at once, and it seemed like everything was kind of happening. Like in the kind of plaza area,
Yeah.
I didn't want to be out by myself. But I figured then we'll be up, unless other staff want to give up their Saturday, and then we can be at 2 places at once, but. Yeah, but I will be, oh, yeah, if you're gonna be there.
Yeah.
I'll give you a tour.
Okay, great.
Should have dessert organized there, then everybody will come there. They want a sweet treat. Right.
That's true, I can have ice cream over there and everybody would come over.
What's happening on the center?
The Village Grove is doing a community, like a neighborhood community. And a whole bunch of or community organizations are gonna be there, like with tables and stuff, so I think that. Nancy said there were like 17 groups of planning to be there.
Yeah.
With information.
So it's,
The Rotary's gonna do hot dogs.
yeah, it's the community council, the Ulysses Community Council is organized, I think they're the chief organizer, right? Or it's,
I think so.
yeah,
And the library, I think this.
yeah. That's right, great. Mark it on our calendars. We can probably, I bet, get that into the newsletter, right? It's open to the public, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I believe, yeah.
great.
Yeah, because they want some, and it's a good opportunity to see the neighborhood if you haven't.
Very nice, great, thank you so much. You're welcome to stay for the rest of it. We're gonna be talking about culverts a lot tonight
Oh,
and highway equipment. And a speed study,
it's an
so
important thing, right?
they are very important, but they don't generate as much public interest as we might like them to, so, but, and with that, I will, we have municipal board staff reports. I know that legislator Corman was not able to be with us tonight. But she is, if she has updates, she's gonna send them to me and I'll make sure they get distributed to the board. Anybody else? I don't see any committee chairs in the room or online. Any board, members reports of what's shaken? Bet Liz is gonna have something from comp plan. Youth Commission takes July off, so I don't have it there. I can tell you we did, as was mentioned, last Tuesday, the Three Falls had an update at the fire hall for the public. It was pretty well attended. There's a recording, that we can get pushed out in the newsletter.
It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube, yep. And it's not on our YouTube page though, is it? No,
It's
we'll,
on Village
yeah, we'll
News.
push it out. We can include a link. Basically, describing what's passive use, which I've said here before, which is passive use is, you can walk your dog, you can have a picnic, you cannot host your wedding there. You cannot go swimming, you can't let your dog run around off leash. Those are more active uses. The Three Falls is about to go into contract with a landscape architecture and planning firm to do a master plan for the park. There'll be a lot of opportunity for community engagement. So that'll be looking more in the fall when that's happening. And the other factor being that as long-term, as the park progressively is able to generate revenue, the municipalities can all get paid back for their seed investment. And of getting the organization going and getting, right now we're covering insurance and mowing, pretty much. And we had some incidental legal fees this year. But it's a fairly low cost at this moment, but of course, as it gets bigger and has more activities, there'll be an opportunity for us to, we don't have to turn over all profits to New York State. We were able to negotiate a contract that allowed us to pay back the municipalities as well as then save for capital investments in the property itself. So any updates from any other boards or committees you're on?
Question for you on Three Falls. Does Park Police make a lap through there?
Everybody is making a lap through there. We've got state police, park police,
Oh, okay.
sheriff's department, the village DPW there is twice a day.
It's Seneca County Sheriff.
Yes, I meant Seneca County Sheriff is going through there. Our highway department is going there at least once a week, probably more. And then employees for the state parks are there. They're using one of the buildings for storage, so they're there on a daily basis too. And I can tell you, the neighbors are doing an excellent job keeping an eye on what's going on. So one gentleman described that if a leaf changes location, he is aware of it. And so I'm appreciative of the courteous neighbors who are making sure that both us and the public are aware of what you can and can't do. So Any other questions? Liz, do you want to give an update on comp plan?
Yeah. So we had our May or July meeting last week.
Oh, you're muted now. Sorry.
Whoop.
There you go.
We've reviewed 8 chapters so far, with 2 more coming this month to review for our August meeting. The town board will be starting to see drafts expected by the end of this week. And what we've talked about with the steering committee is the drafts that'll be released to you guys, and the planning board and the zoning board of appeals will have already gone through 2 rounds of comments and review from the steering committee members. And we feel comfortable to release those to you. The thought was also to release those at the same time to the public, but I just wanted to see if anybody on the board had any questions or concerns with that. We want to make sure that the public has plenty of time to review these before we're looking to have an open house in the mid-October timeframe. So by that point, all chapters would have been released, all chapters would have been reviewed by the respective boards, and be available for the public review, so that we could make the best out of the open house to go through comments, questions, missing items and whatever, so we can finalize the document. But I didn't know if anybody here had any concerns with releasing the drafts at the same time to the public as you'll see them. If there's any reason why you guys want to see them first, it's fine. We could factor that in. Just, I don't know if you guys.
No, I'm fine with.
Okay.
Sounds like
Okay.
general sentiment is go ahead and release.
We will do that.
Exactly.
Release the hound.
Release
Yeah.
the Kraken, but
There's going to be a lot
Hound
to review. I know
search.
the steering committee has been doing a lot of hard work trying to keep up with the reviewing and the documents. So now it's everybody else's turn.
great. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Liz. Okay, if there's no more announcements, we can move on to old business. I have Matt McKenna is back to us from MRB. He's gonna give us an update on the culvert hydrology study, right?
Yeah, thank you for having us. I'll try to keep it short tonight and address the questions from the board, but as part of the ongoing study, we had recommendations for 6 culverts throughout the town to get replaced. The one that we are currently working on a grant application through WQIP with DEC is the Agard Road culvert. That one in the study was shown to be the most hydraulically undersized, as 100-year flood event overtops a road, which has been experienced by the town several times. So to just give you proximity of where we are, Falls Road, Taconic Creek, heading down to Taconic Boulevard, heading up Jacksonville Road and Agard Road, there's corrugated metal pipe that crosses the road there that was actually part of the study. So FEMA develops flood insurance maps. They're called firms or firmets, and what they essentially do is create shaded areas, identifying hazards, that's specifically mostly around water bodies or low-lying areas. Tompkins County and Ontario County went through an update back in, this looks effective date of June 2025, so even within the last month, they've been finalized and rolled out, but over several years, those flood insurance maps have been evaluated. And what FEMA does is they have a modeling program that develops what these limits of the flood hazard are specifically, which helps advise residents, commercial properties, municipalities on whether or not flood insurance is specifically critical, but also shows you where those limits expand to. So this is back to that area, George Road, Jacksonville Road, and Agard Road. Here's that solar farm field with Taconic Creek, identifying that zone A hazard. Downstream of the project site, the stream, Class C stream generally meanders, but the limits of that study stopped short of where this project area is. So MRB's focus area was essentially upstream of the culvert down to that solar field, which we showed here previously on that figure. Evaluating that condition, essentially, we use that program from FEMA or the Army Corps to develop essentially an understanding of what the potential flooding impacts are based on this project. Is this something that would be rolled out by FEMA? Likely not, but what it does give us an understanding is trying to define in our project area. So here's Agard Road and Jacksonville Road. We have that 45-inch elliptical culvert pipe. What we're showing here is the purple area is essentially what would be at the 100-year storm intensity, which is about 440 CFS. At about 120 CFS, this culvert is at capacity. What happens and what likely occurs is that as the storm intensity develops and flows increase, this pipe reaches its maximum capacity and now tends to use upstream conditions as storage for that event. As experienced, that intensity gets to a point where it now overtops the roadway, which, as we've seen, and other municipalities across the state have seen, culverts can actually get physically wiped out, and now you're not only dealing with the culvert to be replaced and rebuilt, but you got roadways and other hazards and damages that occur. From downstream, the existing model generally shows that there is flooding in this private property, but doesn't necessarily impact the house itself. Upstream of the road, we get some storage until we overtop and generally follow the topography, which is a natural channel or developed channel on that property that flows to a 60-inch culvert, crosses the road, and head down the road north towards Taconic Creek. What we've done is, surveyors went out, we got survey grade elevation. We've taken that elevation, we've actually done stream cross sections. So some of these SL 14 and 13 are different cuts where we've actually taken a profile and understood what that water elevation is. So when we take that existing model and plug in our proposed culvert, what this shows to us is that we don't overtop the road. So the sizing of the culvert that we had recommended in our report has lined up with the hydraulics and the findings previously. With upsizing the culvert, we're going to obviously let more flow downstream. That has potential impacts for flooding, doing additional disturbance elsewhere. But our limits generally seem to show the same area. And what our current hypotheses with the model is that at a certain point that this culvert reaches its capacity, water will continue to make its way down that drainage swell. So that's why we think that there's essentially an overflow heading down the roadway. And the existing model already showed that that culvert was likely probably undersized for that 100-year event. So there is some downstream impacts. Not necessarily part of our scope to look at sizing and making that improvement, but want to bring it to the town's attention. So the existing and proposed conditions are showing the similar shaded area as part of this defined hazard.
And to note, right, this culvert on Jacksonville Road hasn't been it's not one of our 6 terrible culverts that's been flagged.
Correct,
right?
and that's a question like, has the town ever witnessed this one?
Not that one, no.
Yeah.
But the driveway to the solar panels, that gets washed out.
Yep, which based on this findings here, again, that's point proven. So, we're working on a grant application. I don't think our approach and recommendation to submit that grant application based on the size of this culvert, I don't think it's changed. The town needs to protect the infrastructure, protect the roadways, upsize that culvert. There is ability to modify this channel. This is all on private property. we had some improvements to the channel at the outlet included in the cost estimate. We certainly could increase channel improvements and downstream drainage with the grant application, have the report match that. And what those drainage improvements can do is potentially drop the elevation that we're seeing back at that culvert. So it actually would shrink down that flood area.
Okay,
So we would be increasing the channel width, which would not only slow down the velocity, but would provide us some of that storage that we've lost upstream to accommodate some of those flood waters.
but that would require the consent of a private property owner.
Exactly. So that's, that's kind of the predicament or, situation that we've come to with running through this analysis, which is good. It's giving us an understanding of the impacts. Obviously, an easement would need to be made, improvements and publicly distributed funds would be made to private property. So that's something for the board's consideration.
Questions for Matt?
Is this still gonna be a culvert? It's not gonna be a bridge, right? It's gonna be a culvert.
Correct. That's where we're currently at, yes.
What kind of culvert?
We had it as a 3-sided rectangular culvert going off memory with an open channel bottom, and that open channel bottom is how DEC has been
Yeah,
proposing them to be,
Hmm.
especially if they're gonna be funding and providing grant dollars towards the construction. So construction, the original estimate was just under just under $1 million, $958,000, which was construction soft cost contingency going into it. That's what's in the report. That's what we could submit the grant application based on. There are still a lot of factors that I think would be sorted out during design if we get there, a better understanding of how much flow would be released here. And again, if channel improvements are made here, would that result in a smaller culvert upstream? That's a balancing act that, you may invest in money in downstream channel improvements, which may tighten up that culvert because of the restrictions we're trying to design around with DOT and not over time.
so my question on this was, if my experience with because we're just now navigating our first grant project, like we got the initial paperwork to submit all of this
Yep.
stuff through the portal for the DEC. So it seems to me that we're fairly locked in with our budget in the grant proposal for what you can actually use, or is there flexibility? So for instance, if we discover, so we've applied for, what you said, just shy of $1 million, or for a project that's just shy of $1 million with a 30% match from the town. If we got in there, and would we have flexibility? Do you know if we decided to do more channel work? No, right?
So
It's fairly,
It would, what you apply for
Is
would
what-
be what your grant award is. So
Okay.
it's not oh no, we found out, we opened bids and.
right, I know that it's like, there's a max, but there's no flexibility and say, like, you can only use X number of dollars for channel and X
Oh,
number
no,
of
no,
dollars. There's flexibility,
No,
there's,
yes,
okay,
yes.
that was my question, because you were saying here that if we did some channel work, we might result
No.
in a smaller culvert.
That would be something that would be sorted out in design.
Okay.
But the project would be the project. The
Right.
project limits are the project limits, and expected that during design, things are gonna change because we're only at the conceptual level. So that isn't a concern. It's just whether or not we'd wanna beef up that. Not significantly, but you could make that consideration going into this grant submission. That's the comment.
So that's a question to the board, because if we ask for X, we've asked for X number of dollars. Do we feel, I mean, I read the material, I read the emails between you and Teresa.
Yep.
And it sounds like MRB thinks that we could be fine going with the amount we've already allocated, because there could be some cost savings, but I wanted the board to have,
Yeah, now's our
That's
chance to,
right.
Maximize a grant.
right. But if it comes out a little bit more expensive, the town will eat 100% of the cost, not 70%. Or
The additional
sorry,
cost.
additional
Yeah.
of the additional cost
So the-
instead of the 30%.
So the program looks to be up to $2 million. And it's a 25% match.
I'm sorry,
so-
it's 25, not 30.
You know, if we added additional either contingency or cost to a line item, you know. Get it, you don't have to use it, but it would be there as kind of that, okay, we found additional items with a valuation that we didn't have in that. Better.
When would we find that out?
What's that?
Years
When
from
would we
now.
Find that out.
Yeah, when we take bids and.
Yeah.
You know, open them up.
Is there any additional work you could do now to tighten up your estimate? Like your estimate of what's required?
I will say we're not done. We're trying to get a better, you know, it's an iteration. So we're taking a closer look at it. And we owe, as part of the grant application, we're gonna put a technical memo together. And we're working on that. So to answer your question directly, yes, we can look at that. And
Looks at it, but
How much contingency do you normally build in to grant application
our costs,
budget?
good question. Our cost estimate from the engineering report carried 20%. And this is a planning grant through DEC. Similar funding agency EFC at the conceptual phase, they'll accept up to 35%, but it's kind of how much safety factor do you want to build in versus being confident with what you've done.
if we were to build in more money, do you have a recommendation of how much more?
I would say, you're probably, if we added $75,000 to the construction costs, you would add on some contingencies and soft costs associated with that. Doing that would get you to $1 million, 1.105 million. And again, at this stage, you know, it doesn't necessarily hurt you. We would update the engineering report, we would create the budget based on this revised amount. That would go into DEC and we would see.
And how many years will this take?
We did, oh gosh, we did the engineering report in
Last year,
24.
24.
You just received a grant award this year just recently for Garrett. If you get under contract in 2 to 3 months, you could be 6 months, 8 months in a year, so you're probably into the next spring construction season.
for Garrett. So if this one was successful, we'd probably find out in December. We probably get a contract next July, June. And so we'd be looking at, that would be 2026 at the earliest for this particular one. I'm sorry, 2027 for this particular one, 2026 for Garrett.
Yeah, and I will say it's common for projects when you're reapplying for grants or reapplying for funding to increase your budget annually for inflation. That's
Sure.
something that is done
Yeah,
that kind of as a norm in a certain sense. A, this is a finding, but B, this is also would be a reflection of that.
So what are your thoughts?
well, it needs to happen.
Yeah. Unfortunately, all these really terrible culprits do have to be replaced.
So ultimately, we'd be responsible for 25% of.
$1 million.
Of the expended money, right?
$250,000. And how much do we have in contingency?
Well, it's not,
We're gonna come out of contingency?
It's a bridge fund, right?
we can talk
The
about it.
Bridge fund, yeah.
Do you want to come up and talk? So. Get you on speaker.
What are the two lines? Right in the middle there. No, to your left. Left, right, those two. Those two vertical, the blocks.
They come down kind of like that,
This?
No, to your right,
No.
to your right. That one.
in a line.
These-
Two lines of.
Sorry.
These two. What are those?
Oh, those are just grade elevations,
Oh, okay, those are
labels.
marks.
Okay, how we pay for
So
this work?
another item on this agenda is also about this issue for the Garrett Road. So we have about $440,000 in our bridge reserve right now. And even though it's not a bridge, it's a culvert. That's what we would be using to help fund our local share. So we're looking at about 130,000 for our local share for the Garrett. So then you'd have to look at using additional,
With 310 left,
right,
so that should cover those.
should. But again, as you're depleting that, then you have to think about how do we replenish it too over time.
How much do we put in every year?
I don't know recently, it hasn't been like every year put in this much. I don't think since I've been here, since 2021, we've added a lot to that particular reserve, because it was funded over $400,000. We have been adding to other reserves, so we might have to relook at that, see, do we need to really start being more mindful about continuing to replenish that reserve once we start using it? So
Let's see, how much did you say is in there right now?
440,000. One of our larger reserves.
Right.
Appropriately so.
These are expensive items,
Right.
which we can't afford to replace unless we get grant funds. I mean, 25% match is the
And
best we can do,
we're 2 years out on using it for this one, right?
at best
Yeah.
case scenario.
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
could hopefully
So
put
we
some
can
in the next 2
continue to
years.
affect that, yes.
We'll do the culvert.
And I mean, frankly, and I don't know if you guys were, I was surprised we got the Garrett Road last year. I mean, it was really surprising to get that grant the first year we applied. We have been on, I mean, it took 5 years to get Curry Road. It's been, Maplewood was numerous years also, so we were in kind of a history of, you put in a grant application, and then you refine it, and you put it in, you refine it, and eventually they pick you. So there's no actual guarantee either that we're gonna get, there's certainly no guarantee, because it's becoming a more competitive grant.
Yeah,
right?
that's, I think I said the last time it was here is. Like, I wanna say culvert replacement was $1 million last year, I think that it's up to 2 million, I've even seen, different situations where there's green infrastructure, or water quality, or aquatic activity going up to $4 million maximum awards, so. In my own opinion, I think that the state will start. Rest of the municipalities are gonna start catching wind of this, and it's gonna be. It's a difficult thing to budget for and pay for, and it's not just Ulysses or. Everyone in this area, it's statewide that has a need, so I do believe it will become more competitive.
So if we do these, how many culverts are left? After if we do these,
We have, the next one after here would be the other Curry Road culvert, the double culvert, which is really bad. But yet not nearly as bad as these. And then, we did, and Reynolds Road. And I think that's the last one of the terrible 6 culverts. I
There's
think,
5, right? I think it was 5. Oh, there was one on there, don't
It was 6.
it was 6.
Yeah.
So Iredell, Reynolds, and Curry. So if we got this one, it would get us halfway through the 6 worst, but then, pointing out that we might end up in a situation, I mean, it doesn't mean that all of our other culverts are in amazing shape. It's just that these are the most high impact.
So I have a question about this application.
Okay.
Because you were mentioning some interface with private property,
Sure.
does that affect our ability to be competitive? Or, are they gonna look at that, or it's not, it's too preliminary to
I
know?
think nothing here says any improvements are being on private property.
Okay,
Majority of what we tried to do with our culvert replacements were to stay within the right of way.
right.
Which is, in the benefit of the town.
I was just thinking about some of the things that you mentioned in your
Yeah,
presentation.
No, I don't think we would need to highlight that in the grant.
In the grant
application.
application.
Yep, this, I think also part of going about this route is this is gonna be. Something that most applications won't have. Part of their submission, and I think it will show, A, the town is really in need, B, we got a culvert that overtops the roadway. And C, we've done an engineering report per DEC guidelines, and now we've gone and done. Model that reflects FEMA's approach or Army Corps' approach, it would seem to me that it should be favorable.
And this is something that would have had to happen anyway, right?
100%. In our opinion, I believe we feel that this is a good effort to understand what your downstream impacts are. And you know, you could even take it upstream. What are the upstream impacts? It's, you gotta draw the line.
Somewhere. Well, the part of the reason too, and I appreciate you coming, it's, I think that even though we just adopted our resolutions for the grant. At the last round or the last town board meeting, I would like to propose that we raise how much we're asking for. I not counting what inflationary impacts there might be based on the most recent federal bill that was signed last week. I think it's wise to ask for more money because it's well within the reasonable rate to be asking for it. And I don't think it could hurt us. It didn't sound like it could hurt us to ask for it. And then if we don't use it, we don't need that much. We don't spend that much, but everything is getting more expensive. Wait till I tell you what the incoming insurance cost might be. So
Don't bring that up yet.
Alright, so what do we have to do?
do you have a total that you think that we should be
Yeah.
aiming for?
What I had was 1.105.
1.105. So I would do a simple resolution to authorize the town supervisor to approve grant application modification for the WQIP grant application for 2025 for Agard Road culvert to 1.105 million. Okay. Any further discussion?
That'll get us to 2027.
God help us, but
We need to do 1.2.
2 million to maximizing it out.
I mean, do you think it'll get us to where we need to be in 2027?
This was a finding that we didn't know with the previous report. So I think this is a wise increase.
And then when would this be submitted?
This will be submitted at the end of the month.
Oh, so right now.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I time sensitive to,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So,
and then, frankly, there's probably a good chance we don't get the money and we resubmit for a project for 2028 and it's 2.3 million. So, I mean, I'm joking. I'm joking. It just feels like the numbers keep getting sizably pushed, which is a good transition to our capital plan later in the. Any further questions for Matt? This is great. This is really, really helpful to see how it all plays out. Well, we had a motion and a second. We had comments. All those in favor?
Right.
Aye. See, I did that one. Got it. Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you very much for coming out tonight. I really
absolutely.
appreciate it. He did. Yeah, he voted yes. The next up is to continue the conversation, Blakesy, of what you started about Garrett Road culvert. Same grant program. We're gonna be responsible for 25% match on that, and so Blakesy was coming to chat with the board about our financial approach and get feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I think we already talked about it a bit.
Yeah.
Really, it's using the bridge reserve to fund the 130,000, that's the local share. Obviously, if the costs do exceed the total budget, once the detailed design is done, then the town would be responsible for anything exceeding that total budget, as we talked about with the other. And that would also have to either come from reserves or other contingency funds, but probably the reserve. So I just wanted to make sure the board understood that in terms of our budget and how we plan for the project. I also want to point out that this is a fully reimbursement grant. I mean, you do with DEC, you do the whole project, and when you're completely done, they give you money. So that is also something that has to be short-term financed. So that you have the cash to pay for it. With the Department of Transportation, you can submit claims monthly and they will reimburse you throughout the project. But with the DEC, they don't do that. They wait till you're done. And you get all your paperwork together and then they pay you. So. Just thinking ahead
Yeah,
about
yeah,
cash
yeah.
flow and stuff like that.
So Michael, what she introduced was just wanted feedback from the town board. Our current plan that we did discuss before is using the 130,000 for the 25% match would come out of the bridge reserve fund. So just wanted to make sure the board doesn't need to take any action on this, but that's the direction we'd be planning for. I mean, obviously the town board will authorize the expenditure, but if there were any qualms about doing it this way, better to get those.
And again, there will be some financing costs associated with the project at whatever point you engage in it.
Mhm.
So,
We just have to make sure we put some money in this, but season.
Yep.
right.
Yeah. But culverts aren't getting any cheaper and they're not getting any less deteriorated, so we kind of have to keep pushing, in my opinion. Great. So the next two items, Lexi, would you mind just staying up here? And Matt, you can stay as long as you want,
Great.
but you don't have to feel like you have to stay either, but you're always welcome to be here.
Thank you.
The Trumansburg Conservatory of Fine Arts asked for another letter of support. This I think is the third they've had this year, third or fourth. And I'm perfectly happy to do them, but I'm just wondering, since it's all for the same building projects, I was wondering if the town board would just authorize me to write them instead of bringing them to the town board each time.
Sure.
So
Good idea.
it'll probably be, this is probably the last one, so, but it's only an authorization. I'm only suggesting an authorization through the end of the year, and then you can, so the resolution is resolved that the Ulysses Town Board authorizes the town supervisor to submit letters of support in 2025 for Trumansburg Conservatory, not Conservator, of Fine Arts grant applications for funding for their historic facility rehabilitation. So it would just be limited to their building projects. But
We're just a letter of endorsement, we're not committing any.
oh, we're not, it's, yeah, there's no commitment of funds. It's basically just saying this is, they're a valuable resource in our community and we support their grant application to fill in the blank institution that they're asking for money from, so. Okay, cool. So I will move that resolution with the addition of a Y, a conservatory. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Hi.
Thank you. And then the next item up is, as you remember, a couple of years ago, the town board, with, Scott's endorsement, as highway superintendent, submitted, a speed study request to the Department of Transportation for Crumbs Corners. It was turned down. The neighbors have continued to still be frustrated and upset. And concerned about the safety of their road. And they have, I think, effectively put enough pressure on their state representatives to actually advocate with DOT. Who are now, my understanding is they're thinking of doing a second study. I spoke to Assembly Member Kellis's office, and they suggested that another letter of support for a speed study would be beneficial if the town would be willing to do it. I don't know if it really tips the scales, but seeing as how we had previously endorsed it, I didn't put together the letter yet, but it's basically, it would be the same thing as we support another speed study to be done. I'm assuming I know you're in favor of dropping speed limits all over the place, so.
Yeah, I didn't know if we wanted to add in that letter about the light. That somebody came to the board meeting and asked about a light on that intersection. If that
Sure.
could be part of it.
I'm happy to add that if that's a recommendation you're making. How does the board feel?
What?
A light in Crumbs Corners.
96 Crumbs Corners, that fellow that came a
Oh, I thought that
few meetings ago.
it was at the other end of Crumbs Corners. No?
They're 96.
96.
I think the
Yeah.
gentleman had come like 2 meetings or 3 meetings ago, wanted a different part, but this is for 96, right?
96 and Crumbs.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the speed study is also, he wanted improved lighting and signage at
Right.
that intersection when you're turning west
Right.
on, right? Yes, you're heading south. I think it's heading southbound and turning west. I think this was the one. So, There was a desire for multiple spaces throughout Crumbs Corners though, regarding speed.
I don't see-
Would this be for the whole road?
I can pull the old letter. I don't have the exact
I think
proportion.
it's just from Perry City Road to 96,
Oh.
that section.
Okay.
Could we ask the DOT to look at safety? Like, I wonder if you phrase
I can
it.
write something up because
Yeah.
the intersection's like at an angle too, like when you park, or when you get to the stop sign, you're like sitting like this. You know, so it's not safe there either, so so I can come up with something.
Okay,
You're saying,
Right, so
where is it to 96 between the,
between 96 and Perry City Road was the last speed study that we did. For Crumbs Corners.
I thought it was only. Oh, okay, yeah.
I think they wanted it to be 40, I think, or something.
I don't see they're gonna put a light.
Oh, no, thank you.
Not a stoplight, just a illumination light.
Like a light, so it's like an
Street light.
intersection,
Oh, I
not a
see.
street light, yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
yeah, not a
Not a
stop
stop
sign,
sign.
not a stoplight, no.
Oh, that would be,
yeah, that would be close.
We don't have any of those in Ulysses, so we need to preserve our lack of them. I'm making a joke, but none of that's our control, but I think it really, like, looking at the safety of that intersection, there have been several accidents. They just, the problem is it seems like DOT, if there's not a fatality, seems a lot less inclined to make changes, and that seems a pretty unfortunate bar to require.
Let's try and.
But I
So-
thought there was one. That doesn't matter, but I support a full safety study if we can.
I think it was a little bit farther down. I think that's where it
Okay.
was a little bit farther down, so it wasn't exactly that intersection, but I know which one you're talking about.
Have you guys looked at the south side of 96 on Crum Corners? You know,
Oh,
it has a dip and then a
Yeah.
knoll, and then you're right on top of 96.
right. That's what I'm talking about. here.
mm,
That's the one that, well, the road needs to be lowered.
Yes, or they can taper it down better, set the intersection, so, but that's something.
That's a different request though.
Yeah,
That's through the county, isn't it?
but I'll write something about that.
Yeah, it's
intersection.
a separate one, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, then I'm gonna amend that resolution a little bit. So the resolved is that the Ulysses Town Board authorized the town supervisors to submit a letter on behalf of the town of Ulysses to New York State DOT for the town board's continuing support of a speed study and lowering the speed limit for Crumbs Corners. I said this road because I referred to it earlier for Crumbs Corners. For a speed study, comma, lowering the speed limit. And safety, how do you wanna say that? Have safety what? Safety
slightly.
Safety measures.
safety measures?
Sure.
Sure. For Crumbs Corners. Does that work? Okay. I will move that. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further comment or discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
You? Okay, first item up of new business is the highway equipment capital plan.
So I didn't make copies for everyone. Should I have done that? Probably. Sorry. I couldn't do that right this minute, but maybe you could start talking about the.
Scott's like, no, thank you.
Bravo, yeah.
Well, it's not gonna be easy without.
I mean, Jerry and I already saw.
Yeah, we've
I
seen it.
know.
So you don't
but
have to make.
It was
copies.
distributed though, right?
Yes, within the board
Okay.
packet.
But
Yeah,
it might be easier if people had it in front of.
So while you're doing that, we can talk about what we do have copies of in very large form. We can move on to our language line phone interpreting contract. I had a meeting with Judge Dresser. The court is seeing an uptick in the number of individuals who come before the court who English is not their primary language. And it's really important that in any legal setting that people interacting with the court actually understand what's being said. The language line services is something, this particular service is used by, the CAP court at the county level. So Judge Dresser was already familiar with it. What it allows the court to do is that if they do have, and primarily would be used for appearances, for, you basically come in and out of court on this, the same day. Maybe you have to come back, but you come in and out of court on the same day. You're not going through a trial. If there's a trial, they would bring in an in-person interpreter. The same way we would do it if someone, needed American Sign Language or something like that.
What happened to that?
What happens now is it hasn't really been an issue until now. What has been happening, there have been a few incidences, and it's funny because the court clerk, I was like, what's the status of this? And on Nate's recommendation, I brought the contract to the town board, even though it does fall within our procurement. I thought it was important for the town board to understand it and quickly make a decision. What happens previously is we've been largely fortunate, the court has been largely fortunate that the individuals, these are related to like traffic tickets. And they've had individuals with them that can translate, but they actually had an individual who came, speaking a different language, I think Ukrainian in this case, who does not have somebody who can effectively translate for them, and they're coming to court later this month. And this service allows the judge basically to call somebody up and select the language, and then you're talking to a live person and you pay by the minute. So it's 99 cents per minute. The difference on this is we have to provide the language services, and it is a lot more expensive to bring in a live person, because for a live person, I believe it's a 3-hour period. You pay for 3 hours regardless of how long it takes. And if it's so, like with, obviously you pay more than 3 hours if it takes more than 3 hours, but if it takes 10 minutes, you still pay 3 hours. So this service is what CAP Court is currently using, and CAP Court is centralized arraignment for the county. So if somebody is arrested at 10 o'clock on a Saturday evening, right? They can go before a CAP Court judge on a rotating basis. The judges in Tompkins County participate and can provide court, so they're not stuck waiting for court arraignment just when a town court is in session. So this is all, it's being proposed. The Judge Dresser would like to use this particular one because that's the one that's already being commonly used. And so it's not something that they anticipate using a lot of. But it's one of those things you don't frankly know you need it until you have a defendant in front of you that day at court. For especially for things like traffic tickets. So questions about that?
Will you need any of the equipment that's listed?
At this point, we do not anticipate needing the equipment. That certainly might be something that could eventually come to fruition, but that would come out of the court budget. And we are not, he has not made me aware that he feels that the need for any of that equipment, it's not required as if you choose to go with the additional leasing, additional terms and things like that. So at this point, I'm not aware of any, thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Other questions?
What's the name of the service?
It's called the Language Line Services, Inc.
This would give us a live person.
Yes. That's all
Over the phone.
over the
on
phone,
the phone.
yeah, for just however long you need them. So,
Would it be a Zoom?
nope, it's just a person on the phone, so that then they then translate to the defendant, and the defendant responds and they translate that.
See this in medical offices too.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's not inexpensive per minute, but it's also, you just use it as you need it, so
It's expensive in the area.
Yeah, that's.
a lot more, yes, a
Yeah.
lot less expensive.
Okay.
Potentially it also gives, and we haven't gotten to that point, I don't think yet, but maybe, and you were not, I think you, when Judge Dresser, we met before you got to work that day, I think. But it might be something that the clerk's office could use in the
Yeah.
future potentially also.
Good to know that that's available for sure.
So,
You wanna move it?
yep. So, but I was. Right now it's under, Krista, that's actually a good question for you, and I didn't think to ask that before. Right now, the customer is Ulysses Town Court. Does it make sense for it just to be the town of Ulysses?
Yeah,
Okay. So, I would, ask for a motion to approve the contract for language line services for the town of Ulysses. And authorize the town supervisor to. Sign it.
It's Dresser's, well, yeah. Second. But Dresser's already signed.
He signed this
Presented.
one, but we'll get it amended and I'll sign a new version of it. But then we can pay for it. I mean, we can. Okay, there was a motion and a second. Any further comment or discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Hi.
Thank you. And that brings us back to Lexi.
Okay, so there are in fact two pages, they look similar, but there's multiple years. So the second page has years that are further in the future.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I see.
Let's see,
Okay, does Krista, do you want one?
Yes.
something I can see.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I know, I tried for it, this visible as possible.
You've already seen it.
Could have used the bigger paper.
Yeah. So this document is formatted where on the left, you see all of the current highway department equipment. And information about the replacement schedule and when we would like to see that equipment updated or replaced. And then, the 2 pages are that it actually goes out to 2036. On the second page, the first page goes to 2030. I would just comment that of all the items on here, there's one new item. Otherwise, what you see is all current items, but with a replacement schedule. And then off to the right, you see each year how much money would need to be invested in the town budget in order to meet the replacement schedule requirements. In some cases, there's trade-in values or sale values of existing equipment. Those are listed there as well, and they offset costs in each particular year. At the bottom of the chart shows how much total money needed to be invested to meet the schedule. And how much we might need to use from reserves. Or if we don't or if we can add to reserves, we would add to reserves. So the idea being that the tax levy investment in equipment stays relatively level. And I just have a 4% escalator built in there. But that we're using the reserve, either replenishing it or utilizing it in each year as needed. In order to keep the tax impact more steady, so that there's not a lot of gyration going on.
Says the total tax and impact is 3%.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. I actually changed it from 4 to 3. So you're correct. Thank you, Rich. I lowered it. Just because I'm not sure what the tax cap is gonna be looking like, but I was trying to keep it under that level. So 3% is what's in this model. The other thing that I wanted to mention that's in this model is that the large 10-wheel dump trucks, because of the anticipated cost. That we're estimating, which we don't know for sure, but we think is not a crazy number, is $400,000. And so this model shows a down payment of $100,000 and financing of the balance over 4 years. So it's a 5-year financing model with a down payment and 4 years of financing. And I do have the details on how those numbers were calculated if people want for the financing model. And again, it's making some broad assumptions for the purposes of the plan and modeling and what the costs might be. So those are some of the basic elements of what you have in front of you. Hopefully you have it electronically, Liz, so you can see that.
I do.
And
Yeah,
Scott, go ahead.
2027, there's gonna be new emissions for these bigger trucks, and it's gonna add like another $50,000 to $75,000 to the cost. That's why we're looking at 400, because right now you can probably get one for closer to 3, but you know, the further we go out, it's gonna just keep going up and up. So I think the only way to do this would be to finance.
Are those
Scott,
emissions?
those
Sam?
emissions, is that
Go ahead.
federal or state requirements?
That's exactly the question I was asking.
Oh.
Thank you, good question.
It's, I don't have the answer for that, but I think it's both. But
I wouldn't be surprised if the federal requirements get backtracked.
that's supposed to start in 27.
Okay.
So in particular with this plan, there's one truck that's way beyond its replacement date. Which is the one that we have in the plan to actually make a down payment in 2027. However, in order to have it to make a down payment in 27, you have to start ordering it or at least investigating what it's gonna be now, right? Because there's such a big lead time on those pieces of equipment, because they build them from scratch, right?
Yeah, lead time is still 2.5 years, probably. Before you go.
Wow,
That's about how long it took for the last one.
yeah,
So,
yeah, we had paid it off, like
Yeah.
on delivery, basically.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. And so this model also assumes that you wouldn't make a payment, a down payment, until you take possession of the vehicle. Which we don't know whether that's gonna
right.
work that way or not. So
Yeah,
Yeah, we
I
just-
gotta do some homework.
till you actually start looking at making an order and what might be involved in it, we don't really know. But that's been my experience with the town of Newfield is that we would make a down payment when upon taking possession of the truck. And then the financing would kick in after that. So in year one, you just have this cash outlay. And in year 2, 3, 4, 5 is when you're actually paying principal and interest on the installment purchase.
And they should let us do that, because if we don't pay for it, let's say, or if we just don't want it again, you know, like in 2 years, they could sell it. You
Yeah,
know, they're not gonna have a problem selling.
so I would recommend not paying anything until you actually have it. So. But, you know, there's just so many unknowns. And you wanna make sure that what you have is gonna satisfy your needs too.
Yeah.
So, and there's such a big time frame in all of this. Anyway, so
so after that, after the 10-wheel dump truck, what's the next? What's the next, I mean, we don't have to go through each and individual item, but I'm wondering what's next and how much we're anticipating.
well, if you wanna go year by year, maybe we should do that, cause we just jumped ahead, right?
Right,
In 2026, there is a purchase. Did you wanna talk about that?
So is this the budget we approved last year?
What's in 2025? Yes.
Yeah, everything.
Because you're trying to do, you want to do the T21, right?
Yeah,
Right,
Well-
but that,
So that is not reflected in this document you gave us. Is that correct?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
is that an old one you're looking at this week?
This is what came out in the,
Yeah, this is this document. So the T21 is reflected in 2027 in this document.
right, but isn't that what you're asking to buy now?
What would.
Oh, we just have to order it.
You have to order it.
Yeah.
So even though your budget isn't gonna be affected until 2027, if you don't look at ordering it now. You won't have it.
All
in
right,
2027.
sorry, I
Yeah,
understand.
because-
So what's the financial impact in 2025? Is there any financial impact in 2025?
No,
Okay, that's easy.
Yeah, no. So in 2025, there is no financial impact. The only things in 2025 that you see here are things we had already planned
Okay,
in our budget process.
Yeah, no one's asking for any new money.
Yeah.
Just, it's mostly the resolution is to accept this as our capital plan. Because it's been updated to reflect increased costs and expectations, and
It-
then
in future years.
in future years.
Okay,
And then give Scott the authorization to go ahead and start gathering the information needed to go ahead with an acquisition, but it would come back to the town board for an actual purchase.
that's what I did.
And yeah, no, and then we don't start, Lexie's proposing that we don't start paying for it until we have it in hand.
It'll be in the budget for 20.
It's not even gonna be in the budget
Yeah.
for 26.
Correct. It's just one of those things that if Scott doesn't start
Yeah.
on it now, we
Right.
won't have it,
Right.
you know. So.
Yeah.
So that's an element of the plan, but as far as the actual budget process goes for next year, there's one item that's in here for scheduled for purchase.
Yeah.
In 26.
In
26.
26.
That's the F-350.
Yes,
T3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, what I tried to do is do the usable,
Is that what you're driving now?
no, that's,
Oh, okay, I know what you're, yeah,
that's,
Yeah.
it says.
that's Scott's, that's right
Yeah,
below
so-
the 350, yeah, okay.
You're aiming for a ways on that one, 2030 replacement,
Mhm.
But it doesn't have like any.
10 miles on it, right, exactly. That salt.
Yeah, well, the Fords have. the
Coating.
Bodies and stuff, so they rust, but the underbody, we,
Their frame will
yeah,
disappear.
but
Yeah.
we wash them and we use, wool wax, and we're pretty good about trying to keep the.
I was teasing you,
That's fine.
so. Probably shouldn't do that in public where they might actually think I'm serious. No, it's 10 years in upstate New York for a vehicle would be.
So is this like a precursor for this year's budget? Work that we'll get?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that actually, that's part of the reason we're talking about this now.
Right.
Is because I wanted the board to have a sense of this before we enter into the budget process.
Would you talk about then what we're looking for, wanting to make sure we have in reserves and feed the reserves?
Sure. So in 2025, which is part of our, the budget was already approved, we're adding $6,500 to the reserve. But in 2026, we're actually adding $35,000 to the reserve. Our net purchases are 90,000, that's our expected net purchases for that truck, because there's a trade-in value or, sale value of what is currently there.
We could get more.
But we need to build the reserve so that so that we have adequate funds in 2028. When we have some other purchases and the financing is in place for the new truck, the new big 10-wheeler. So the idea is that you either feed the reserve or utilize it as needed so that the tax impact is nominal. And that's how this plan goes all the way to the end. And it actually, the reserve stays right around, between 140, 130,000, and it never goes up much above 200,000. There's 1 year where it goes a little bit over that, but it gets utilized the following year. So it kind of stabilizes things over a longer period of time. Obviously, we don't know what will happen and we have to look at it every year and update it every year.
Purposes, we're only in 26.
Right, for the budget purpose, but I think it's helpful
Yeah.
though, in terms of funding reserves, you've got to be thinking long term and what that's gonna look like, and that's why Scott, and I looked at this together and, he was the one who really put together the replacement schedule and decided how many years we could live with different pieces of equipment. And I put together the numbers for the financing model so we could build that in. And, this works. And the only new piece of equipment that is built in here is a skid steer, which would replace a tractor, right? I don't know if you want to talk about, that's a few years out, but it's part of the model. So I just think it's important to understand that. The need for that.
Yeah, the skid steer is just multifunctional, where this tractor is just not really. So,
Well, And the tractor is a 2002.
Yeah, that's right, so that's okay, so.
But
It doesn't seem like it, but it's all.
Right, I mean, not that you put a ton of hours on it, but still, so that's, I think, the idea.
I mean, I feel really good about this capital plan, working with Lexi has been great, so. I feel really good about it.
looks good.
Great. So the resolution, so resolved that the Ulysses Town Board approves the updated 2025 highway equipment capital plan. And be it further resolved that the town board directs the highway superintendent and budget officer to prepare the necessary documents for proceeding with an acquisition of a new 10-wheel dump truck to be reviewed by the town board at future meeting. So that's, I moved it, so perfect. Rich seconded it. Any further discussion, questions or comments?
Budget question for Lexi after we.
Sure. Then all those in favor?
Alright,
Aye.
Aye.
Your question.
so when we do this, is it, and it's a finance question, can you do like a rolling average on the highway budget? Cause it has the peaks and valleys when we're buying big pieces of equipment to make sure that we're properly funding it, or I'll call it the medium term.
Yeah.
Isn't that what this already does?
This
This does it basically.
does that. We could also look, I've done some historical analysis of that too. And yeah, there was that sort of tendency to have this happening, this up and down. But with this model, that should prevent that from happening. It should be more
Mhm.
like this.
Yeah.
So yes,
But it's hard to see it when you're buying a truck, a 300,000
Right.
truck, and
so
Well, but we're financing that, so that smooths that back.
Yeah.
We're not gonna have a spike of 300,000.
Yeah.
but certainly we can talk about that more when we're going through the actual 26
okay,
budget.
yeah, if you feel good about the, where we are with it.
And take a look at that and see what that impact is over time.
And how's our year to date on the fund,
Year to date,
on the highway fund?
pretty much in line with the budget.
Yeah.
The June financials, if, there is some more detailed analysis there. With my board report, things are looking pretty much in line with the budget. I didn't have any modifications to recommend right now. There are a couple little minor things we'll have to adjust in the next couple of months, but things are on track, and several revenues are coming in generally above what we had planned for. So that will give us a little more wiggle room. Mostly
Mortgage
within the
tax,
A fund. What's that?
mortgage tax.
Mortgage tax, sales
Sales
taxes,
A little bit up.
a little bit up, but
Not
not tick
much.
up. I wouldn't,
Sure.
Yeah.
so far, but I have to talk to the village because we just gotta get caught up with that. I know their fiscal year just ended, so they're, they had to get a budget adopted and all of that, so. But also the port revenues have now exceeded the annual budget and we're only through May.
Mhm.
So again, that's not a huge number, but it's still very strong.
Good.
So I think that, and I don't see any areas that look like they're gonna be way under. What we predicted in terms of revenues coming in, so that's good.
You can see in in building permits have been up. There were 5 or 6 in June alone. There were 5 new construction permits. Couple AEDs, a couple houses. And then we got 18,000 for an extension
Extension for an existing.
for the cars project is taking longer. So
Close-
that,
Close to 20,000.
yeah, so that was a completely unexpected boost to the B fund. So,
Yeah.
which doesn't get a lot of unexpected boosts, to be perfectly honest. So it was nice to see that come through, but
Yeah, you're welcome.
great. Thank you, Lucy.
That makes sense.
Just as a note, I would have said this earlier under there'll be an announcement, there'll be information about this, in future newsletters. I should have said this under my staff report, is that, we are seeking we are waiting on feedback from New York Ag and Markets on the proposed park donation. They were not in our original environmental, they were not identified in our initial environmental review, our draft environmental review as an interested agency. It came to our attention that we should ask them, and so that has been submitted to them. And they have a 30-day window to respond back. I'm hoping to be able to bring the park donation, if they have responded, I'm hoping to bring the park donation on July 22nd. But it's important that we wait for their feedback. But we've gathered quite a bit about, learned quite a bit about how much we have a fairly significant percentage of the town is in active agricultural use. So I think that one of the findings might be that while this particular piece of land would cease being agricultural, the overall impact to the town is, it's a very small percentage. We have approximately 9,000 acres in active agricultural use, and this is 15. So while not insignificant for this particular parcel, I believe and we'll get into it though in the environmental. I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention, the public's attention. I haven't forgotten about it. We're simply just waiting for that information to provide the most complete environmental review possible. So, okay, upcoming events. Our next regular meeting is July 22nd. And we did cancel the second meeting in August. I will be out of town and unrealistically able to attend the August 12th meeting, so I'm hoping I can pass the torch to my deputy. Is that? Then we have put on the schedule the proposed budget meetings for Lexi will lead us through that in early September. And that brings us to, or is there any other, the August 2nd, right? The community open house. We'll make sure that gets, it probably won't end up on our board agenda, but we did note that date for the community open house at the Crescent Way property. And then that brings us to approval of the minutes. We had minutes from June 24th, I believe is the date we had. Everybody have a chance to review those? Did you need any changes?
Nope.
My only question was I wasn't able to attend that meeting, but I voted aye in a lot of the items, so I don't know if that needs to get corrected.
All right, let me get that. Okay, any other?
Table that.
That's funny. Okay, well, with the amendment of Liz being thoroughly stripped from that meeting, do I have a motion to approve the June 24th, 2025 minutes as amended?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
We do not have any board notifications. We do not have any budget modifications. That brings us to payment of audited claims. Anybody have any questions? The shorter packet by Scott. It's not one of our big months to pay big ticket items. Anybody have any questions on them? Okay, checks assigned. So I will move the resolved that the Ulysses Town Board has reviewed and approved payments of audited claims for vouchers in the A through SW funds, numbers 337 to 377, totaling $59,493.10. Yeah, I can take it. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And that brings us back to privilege of the floor. And you're welcome
Okay, I'm
to.
the only guy left here. So my name is Tim Martinson. I'm from Van Dorn Corners Road. And the only reason I'm here tonight is because I turned on WACU this morning and they said we were gonna discuss the Prince property and the park proposal. the donation of land, so I wanted to register my support for that. And me and my family. But it sounds like they had it wrong. They mentioned how controversial it was. That there was some strong opposition, so. So that's why I'm here, but I stayed through the end and learned a lot about the culverts and. And then I do have one more comment, and that's about the Clem Corners Road, you know, that block between. 96 and Perry City Road. I don't think our street. Between Iredell and 96 is that different. Should we have a traffic study there too?
So I am happy to tell you about traffic studies. So it is a relatively simple process to have us request one. We have a mixed history with DOT, state DOT, so we do not have authority over the speeds in the town. And so we have to request that DOT does a speed study and then they determine if speed limits should be adjusted. So the process is that that if you have concerns, I would encourage you to work with your neighbors to put together a simple petition, and it really is a simple petition. You could really have it on a piece of paper saying that I support a speed study for my road from this point to this point, due to safety concerns or whatever, you know, pedestrian access, whatever your specific concerns are, and have neighbors sign it, put their address on it, and then it gets turned into, it can come into the clerk's office, or you can email me, or you can email Carissa with it, and then we give it to the highway superintendent, and he comes out and does a site visit. In a lot of cases, he's already well aware. I'm not putting Scott on the spot because he's not here to defend himself, but he and I have talked about, you know, he would love to be able to just reduce speed limits in the town. Because 55, if it's not posted anything else, it's 55, and that's really fast on a lot of our roads. So, but basically he will come and review it, give feedback. He's been, in my time, he's been supportive of every single one that has come before us. Falls Road did one a few years ago. They reduced it to 250. Rabbit Run went from 55 to 45. Crumbs Corners was previously turned down. We've had, am I missing any more, Carissa? I feel like those are the main ones that we've done most recently. I don't know, there's been a bunch. Garrett wasn't.
Perry Road.
Garrett Road was one. Anyway, so we once the town board approves it, we send it to the county. The county has approved every one that we've requested, and then it goes to the Department of Transportation, and they schedule one. So from a citizen standpoint, if you want to submit one, it's not very, it's the legwork to ask your neighbors if they agree, but you know, we've been amenable to reviewing every concern that the property owners have, residents have about their streets. So,
Okay, well, thank you.
well, thank you for your time. And I'm sorry that we did not have more information on the park, but that truly is because we just want to make sure we do the full environmental review. So,
Okay.
either the,
July 22nd, maybe I'll be back.
so, well, and you can check our website. So the board packet will always be posted the Friday before the meeting. And so you can look, and then in the town newsletter, I will definitely, we didn't have a town newsletter last week because of the 4th of July holiday. Otherwise I would have told the public this way too. But, in the newsletter on the Friday before, the town board meeting, I will make sure it's in there that we're going to be discussing it again. So, I do want people to be informed. So maybe we should do a press release, to get out to the folks, because we were hopeful to be able to do it tonight, but you know,
Okay.
Ag and Markets has their own timeline, so we're
Okay.
navigating
So
that.
the race you had it wrong.
They did, but thank you very much.
Okay, I want to
Thank you
say
for
that
coming
I
out.
really appreciate the weekly newsletter.
Oh,
Really
good.
great.
Great. Awesome.
Yeah. All right, good night.
Good night. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you being here. And with that, we are,
Move to adjourn.
Second.
there you go.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks, Liz.